Welcome into Sportsmemo's betting podcast for July 3rd, almost there to 4th of July. Happy 4th of July weekend out there to all the listeners. We got Nick Borrman on with us. We're talking soccer, we're talking golf, we got MLS, every game on the board, talking a little Gold Cup, Women's World Cup. Without further ado, Nick, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hey, Drew, I'm doing well. Watching, getting ready to watch the men's USA tonight, try to make it to the final after the women did so yesterday. So hopefully it's a happy 4th of July with both teams going to the final on Sunday this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you're and Nick's talking about the Gold Cup here, and we got Jamaica versus the USA tonight in the Gold Cup. Mexico, I believe, moved on to the championship last night after beating Haiti in a very close game, and also the game before that with Mexico, nipped by Costa Rica as well. So they find themselves in the championship, and they're going to face the winner of Jamaica USA tonight, right, Nick?
Yeah, that's correct. Mexico coasted in the first three games, and I thought they were just going to really coast into the final. But they had to squeak by Costa Rica, like you said. I'm sure you were catching some of that game and cheering for Costa Rica, I would imagine. And then last night, that was the game you expected to be closer. Last night, I mean, they were favored by a goal and a half. You thought Mexico would have no problem with Haiti, but it took all the way to extra time to get through. But at the end of the day, a win's a win, and you could say the same thing for the U.S. in their last game. I mean, they squeaked by Curacao just to get to this point and winning 1-0, and that's all that really matters is you get the win, find a way. So hopefully the U.S. can do it tonight.
Yeah, no, it will be a fun one to watch. I'll be watching it as well. And you bring up Mexico in that Costa Rica game. Yeah, I watched the whole game, went all the way to penalty kicks. I'll tell you one thing I noticed about Mexico, and I'm no soccer expert though. They play like prison rules, Nick. They'll grab when you're running by and like stuff like that, and they'll get the penalty a lot of times. But you can tell it's kind of like in maybe they're coached that way. Maybe it's just this coach or this team. But I'm not saying all Mexico soccer players, but they do kind of do those little extra things to kind of get a little advantage. Have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, I don't know if it's. I wouldn't say anything particular to the coach on it. I mean, he's very well, versed and has a good history with plenty of different teams. He won the MLS Cup last year at the Atlanta United, but they didn't play quite that way. I think it's just a bunch of players that are on there and some of the tactics they use. And I think, in this particular competition, you're playing a lot of the same teams you play, more often than not. Like you go to a World Cup and you're playing teams from Europe and teams that you may only play during those type of world competitions. So these teams you see more often, better. I don't know. There's always a little bit more fire under your belly when you're playing teams that you see more often. So I think that might have something to do with it.
That makes sense. In tonight's game, we got Jamaica, USA. The three-way line, we got a draw at plus 260, USA minus 170, and Jamaica to win is plus 570 right now at Bookmaker. You got any opinion on betting Jamaica, USA tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern?
I really don't, to be honest. I think U.S. they should go in. They should be able to win this game, but I think the numbers are right where they need to be. The money line provides no value there. Like you said, at minus 170, that's a lot to lay. The Asian handicap right now is a full goal, -1, which is probably what the winning margin will be if the U.S. does win. And the total set at 2. Jamaica is just a grinded out, low-scoring type of a team, and the U.S. has played that way the last couple of games as well. So honestly, this one's tough as far as a betting standpoint, so I'm not going to give out a recommendation. Personally, I'm going to skip this one, but I'm going to certainly be watching, certainly be rooting for the U.S., but I think I don't see any value really as far as the line goes, unfortunately, in this game.
Okay, and Nick, what about in Copa America? I believe there's a game tonight as well. Are you seeing any value there? Peru versus Chile?
Yes, I do see some value in that game. I actually have a play available up on the site right now for that match. So I do have a Copa America play going tonight, but nothing on the Gold Cup. Last night I did the opposite. I went with the play in the Gold Cup and nothing in the Copa America. So I reversed that tonight, and I do have a play going there. So, I see a little value. It has started to move the number a little bit, so hopefully it doesn't go too far, but there's still value where it stands right now.
Okay, and all these tournaments, we're seeing the favorites booking their tickets to the championship game. Talking Mexico in the Gold Cup, Brazil in Copa America awaiting their opponent, and lastly, the USA women beating England 2-1, I believe, just yesterday. What are you seeing here in terms of the Women's World Cup?
Yeah, you're right on the money. All three favorites are already booked to the final, and no matter who they face, they're going to all three be the favorites going into that final. The women, I mean, no matter who they play, Sweden or the Netherlands, which play today, are going to be favored. They already beat Sweden 2-0 in the group stage as they were in the same group, and they actually I expected that game to be a little bit closer, but they actually had a very good game plan against Sweden, played them very, very well. So I'm sure Sweden would be dying for a rematch there, of course. And I'm honestly more worried about the Netherlands than I would be Sweden. They have looked very good as far as being able to just convert their chances, controlling the game tempo so far in all their matches. So I think the worst matchup for the U.S. is the Netherlands. I think between the Netherlands and Sweden, they're going to come down to the wire. It's going to be a very, very close game. But I just think the way Netherlands plays is going to give the U.S. more trouble than Sweden will. They kind of play more like England, which U.S. was on their back heels a lot in that game yesterday. I don't know if you were watching any of that, especially in the second half. So there was a penalty that the U.S. saved near the end of the game, and there was a goal ruled out for offside, which was, I mean, by an inch or so. They called offside on that. So U.S. was definitely lucky to get past England, and I think the Netherlands could, if they get through, could very well give them a tough match in that final, more so than the Sweden. But, that's just my opinion. So either way, they're going to be favorites going into that match for sure.
All right, guys, and we're talking with Nick Borrman on Twitter at Borrman00. He's hitting 60% in the Copa America and Gold Cup combined this year. Also 22-9, up over 70% in the Women's World Cup. So really knows his stuff in the Women's World Cup. Is there something you think there's a reason why, Nick, that I guess the Women's World Cup has been a little bit more beatable for you than hit over 70% is impressive enough. Do you think there's anything you're doing right this year that's making you see it well?
Well, as far as the women, I think it's just that, the market doesn't quite have as far a good of a grasp on those lines as they do other games. I mean, these competitions, you don't hear much about the women's game unless it's a World Cup or maybe the Olympics. So what we've seen in the women's game, and honestly, I had to do quite a bit of research before this competition started because it's not like I'm following it on a day-to-day basis. But what you're seeing is that in between this World Cup and the last one 4 years ago, there's been a huge increase in the level of competition between some of these lower ranked teams, and they're catching up to the USA and to the better ranked teams. I mean, there's still a gap there, but the gap is significantly closed. So, the odds makers, how they're setting their lines and what kind of information they're using to put them out there. There's been a lot of underdog covers, especially through the group stage. I mean, you had teams laying 4 goals, 5 goals, 6 goals even at times, and it wasn't warranted. And a lot of that was just because of the rise, I guess you could say, in some of these lower end women's programs. So I think a lot of that has to do with just the changes and the lack of information out there for both bettors and odds makers. I mean, you see USA versus Chile immediately after they beat Thailand 13-0. Well, you think, oh gosh, they're going to win 7-0 again, but that was a fluke for sure. So I think a lot of it has to do just with information that isn't quite available to people, and just kind of looking at some score lines and going, oh well, then they're better than them, they got to win, without really looking behind the numbers and seeing what they truly mean. But I think it's just a better competition than there has ever been in the women's game, which is obviously good for them.
Good stuff, Nick. I mean, keep it up, man. Up over 70% for the Women's World Cup. Not much left, but there is a lot of soccer left, guys. And we got the early bird soccer season package up at sportsmemo.com on Nick's handicapper page, heavily discounted. It will get you all the way through next year, May, and that is the Champions League final. It will get you every soccer play that Nick releases for only $5.99. That's $300 off. No coupon code needed there at sportsmemo.com. Early bird soccer season package. Nick, we're going to talk, MLS, every game on the board here for this week. We got PGA coming up. And guys, if you're listening on Wednesday, we got a bunch of 5% plays, top plays up at sportsmemo.com in MLB. Check it out. There is 3 of them up there. We got discounted packages, a 2-pack available, a 2-for-1 offer. So check it out at sportsmemo.com. A lot of value for today going into the holiday weekend. Full MLB card. But let's talk some MLS here. Every game on the board Wednesday night. We got Seattle at New York City. New York City minus a goal here. 2.5 being the total. There's also some 2.75s out there, Nick. How would you look to bet Seattle at New York?
This line last night was New York minus 3/4 of a goal and was moved to 1 overnight and into today. And I agree with that move. Seattle, it took until the 96th minute. I mean, just before they blew the whistle in their last game, they ended up winning 1-0 for a goal there that late in the game to beat Vancouver. You knew it was going to be a close game just because those two teams play each other tough. They have a long history against one another. And the good news for Seattle is they will be getting several players back for this match. They actually had a league high 10 players away on international duty. But now that we're into the semifinals and going on to the finals, a lot of the teams are eliminated, so a lot of those players are coming back for these MLS teams this week. But there are 3 big names that still remain away. Christian Roldan, Jordan Morris, and Raul Rudiez are all gone still for Seattle, and Morris and Rudiez have combined for 10 goals for the Sounders this season, so their absence is certainly still going to be a factor here. New York, they're playing honestly as well as any team in the league right now. They haven't lost a game since March. They're unbeaten in their last 13 games. They have 8 wins and 5 draws. They've won 4 straight games, and they've scored 4 or more goals in 3 of those games, and just winning 4-2 over a really good Philly team just this past weekend, who they really just completely outplayed for the full 90 minutes. Only one player, Alexander Callan, still remains out on international duty. And really the way they've been clicking, I mean, he's been gone the whole time. The way they've been clicking, they haven't missed a beat with him. I just think as good as New York is playing, as strong as they are, and the fact that Seattle just still has guys missing, and even the guys that are coming back, you got some, anytime you're away it's been 3-4 weeks for some of these guys, you kind of come back into a little bit, I don't want to say rust, but maybe, you don't have quite the sync with one another, the players anyway. And it's shown in their last couple of games. So I think New York at home is the way to play this game. The fact that it's moved to -1 is taking some value out of it, but I still think that's the way to play it. You can also make the -0.75 line yourself if all you have available to you is -1. You can take half your bet on New York -1 and half your bet on New York on the 3-way line, which is essentially the same as -0.75. So you can kind of create your own line there. But I think New York's going to win this game at home.
Good stuff, Nick. We got Philadelphia at Orlando up next. Orlando minus quarter goal home favorites here. Total of 3.
Yeah, only one player missing really for either team, and that's Andre Blake, who's Philly's goalkeeper. He remains on international duty. He's a keeper for Jamaica, so he's actually going up against the U.S. tonight. Otherwise, everybody's in this game. But I'll be honest, this isn't a game I'm looking at too much tonight. I could make a case several different ways to go against either team, but I really can't make a case to back either one. Orlando, they won last weekend, but they've yet to win back-to-back games this year. They've won 4 of their last 5, but Philly is just a tough team. I mean, they lost, as I just mentioned, to New York 2-4 last weekend, but New York is one of the hottest teams in the league. And for Philly, this will be their 4th straight road game. So, maybe there's a little bit of something going with Orlando, but I don't know. Orlando's too up and down. They're too, like I said, they haven't won back-to-back games. They're inconsistent. So I just hate laying a number with Orlando, and Philly's too good, I think, to lay any number against. So I don't like this one. I'm going to keep my money in my pocket here and move on to the next.
We got the Atlanta United at Chicago tonight. We got Chicago's minus a half a goal home favorite here. Total of 2.75, Nick.
Yeah, I don't see why Chicago should be favored here. I mean, I know, there's a lot to be said for the home MLS records, as we've always talked about, but they have been playing really badly. They've gotten they're winless in their last 7 matches. They only have they only have 4 wins at home this entire year. 3 of those were against non-playoff teams, Minnesota, New England, and Colorado. And they've really struggled against the better teams that have come to town, like Seattle, New York City, Vancouver, and Salt Lake. So not only are they playing bad right now, but they really haven't gotten good results against decent teams at home all year. Atlanta, they've been without Joseph Martinez, as he's been playing for Venezuela during the international break, but he returned to training this past weekend. And he's expected to play tonight. I don't know yet. I haven't seen if he's going to be starting in the starting lineup or not. There's a good chance he may be, but even if he's not, it sounds like he's definitely going to come in at some point and feature in this game, which is obviously good news for the United, as he's the reigning goal champion from last year, scoring 31 goals for him last year. So Atlanta getting their best scorer back. Chicago not playing well. Atlanta in general has been playing great. They've actually won 10 of their last 13 games. And they already beat Chicago 2-0 at home this year. So with Martinez back, I just can't see Chicago laying any goals here. I like Atlanta catching a half a goal, and I actually think it's worth throwing a few bucks in Atlanta on the 3-way line. They're plus 250 right now to get a win, so it's worth probably a few bucks there as well, Drew.
All right, Nick, we got San Jose at Minnesota up next. Minnesota also a half a goal home favorites, total of 3 in this one.
Yeah, both teams playing very well at the moment. San Jose has really come alive after a terrible start to the year. They have just 2 losses in their last 13 games and have back-to-back shutout wins over Houston and the Galaxy their last 2 games. On the road, though, they haven't been quite as sharp. They have just 1 win on the year and 2 losses in their last 4. But they've done a decent job of getting some points with draws. And really, as we talk about all the time, that's the MO for the MLS. Win at home and go out and try to get a point with a draw on the road. Minnesota, they embarrassed Cincinnati last weekend. They won 7-1, which is just a lot of goals to score in any soccer league, but especially MLS. But everyone has really been embarrassing Cincy lately. Still, it was a good win for them. They've now won 3 straight games, including 2 U.S. Open Cup matches, and they've scored at least 3 goals themselves in each one of those games, while they've conceded goals in 6 straight games. So this is really a matchup of 2 hot offensive teams that are both prone to slip up on defense. So I'm thinking we're going to see a lot of fireworks here, a lot of chances both ways. Minnesota already won 3-0 at San Jose back in March, which marks the 4th straight game that these teams have reached at least 3 goals scored. And the previous 3, including both last year, finished over the total. So I like the over here, Drew. I think we'll see at least 3 goals in this game. Good chance at 4 or 5. So playing the over in this one.
All right, Nick. And all these games are tonight. There's none coming up on the weekend?
There are games. It's a midweek slate, so we got games tonight, a couple games tomorrow, and then we have another full card for the weekend. So because of the international break, they're kind of playing catch-up. They had midweek games last week, midweek games this week, as well as games over the weekend. So, a lot of the squads have had players out, so it's, as we get back to full-strength squads, there won't be a lot of worried necessarily about players resting some of their starters just because the starters haven't been around. So, full slate still this weekend coming up as well.
I know that which players will play matters in terms of which are playing in the international, the Gold Cup or whatever. But what about with it seems like more games this week and last week? Is there a fatigue factor in each player that you're bringing into your handicaps?
For sure. In fact, last week, that was a big issue. We had released a 5-star, 5% play, top play on Portland last Wednesday, and they've been playing great. They weren't missing anybody for a national break. And what do? They rest basically their entire starting 11, which, of course, I put out the play 2 days beforehand. And those lineups, which I did not expect at all, weren't released until an hour before the game. And honestly, that was out of nowhere. I mean, I was reading information on it after the fact. Fans were irate. None of the players were aware it was going to happen. It was kind of like I don't want to say a last minute move, but it was kind of kept in the dark for a while. So it happens. Most of the time you don't know it early enough to factor in. You can speculate, and usually when they do it, you're talking about rotating 1-2 players, not all of them, which is what happened in that game. So that hurt, of course, but it's a factor you have to go kind of think about and say, okay, all right, we're playing tonight, we're playing midweek tonight, and we're playing on the weekend. Which game? I don't want to say which game is more important, but that's what they're going to look at. If you're playing an out-of-conference game versus in-conference game, you're going to treat one a little bit differently. If you're home versus away, you may treat one a little differently. And usually you're going to see 1-2 guys subbed in and out, not all 11 like we did in that game. So, yeah, it's definitely something you got to factor, but you don't always have the information available to you when you're at least trying to get ahead of the line movements and get stuff out early.
All right, Nick, we got a couple games left here. Next one up, we got the best team in the West versus the worst team in the West, and we're seeing it in the line. We got an away favorite in the MLS, man. The alarm bells should be ringing. What's going on here? Los Angeles FC minus a quarter goal at Kansas City, total of 3.
You're right. As far as the records go, this is number 1 versus number 12. However, the line opened at minus 0.5 and has actually now moved to minus 0.25 for LAFC. So money is coming in on Kansas City, and I think, rightfully so here. I agree with it, which is maybe surprising to hear, but LAFC finally looked beatable last week. They lost their second game of the year, 0-1 at Colorado. The Rapids really did a great job at limiting their opportunities, and they honestly didn't have many chances to score. They kept a ton of the possession in that game, but it was kind of useless possession. They weren't creating any chances out of it. Both of their losses have been on the road this year, and they have just 4 wins in 9 matches on the road, so they're not even winning half of their road games this year. Kansas City, as you mentioned, dead last in the West. They lost at Salt Lake last weekend. Last year, believe it or not, they won the conference. They conceded just 40 goals in 34 matches, and this year they've already conceded 29 through 17. So only Colorado in the conference has given up more goals. But there's a big schedule factor going on here with LAFC. Has been busy. They have not had really their big players like Carlos Vela, who should be on Mexico's national team. He chose not to go on that team, but they are missing a key defender, Walker Zimmerman, and their keeper, Tyler Miller, who are still out for Team USA, while Kansas City has their full squad for this match. But Kansas City at home is tough, even though their record looks bad. They have good home wins this year over Philly, Montreal, and Seattle. They did lose against LA and the Galaxy, but those are the only 2 losses they have this year. And I think they're going to put up a good fight here. I don't think you're going to see LAFC come in here and roll over Kansas City by any means. Like I said, the schedule, it's been a busy stretch for LAFC. They played a couple U.S. Open Cup matches last week. They just lost at Colorado. They're back on the road again here, so I think that's a big factor involved this week. So, surprising or not, I think Kansas City is going to keep this one close. I think they can earn a draw and maybe even sneak in a win, but I definitely think they can sneak out a draw here. So I like Kansas City catching the quarter goal line in this one, Drew.
All right, interesting. We got New York Red Bulls up next at Houston. Houston minus a half a goal favorite, total of 3.
Yeah, Houston has really struggled through a very busy schedule, and they've had a ton of players out for international break. They've actually lost their last 4 straight games, but all of them return here, and they played a rotated side, as you were talking about, subbing players in and subbing players out. So they actually did that last weekend and gave several guys off against New England, and of course they lost that game. But they did do that, and with a lot of their starters coming back from international break, this is going to be the first time in several weeks that they're going to have a full-strength squad. So obviously that's good for them. And they've been great at home this year, where they've yet to lose. And they actually had a nice 5-game winning streak earlier this season at home as well. So tough team at home. The Red Bulls, they won 3-1 at home versus Chicago last weekend, which I was happy about. We had a best bet on them, but admittedly, watching that game, they were completely dominated. I really don't know how they ended up winning that game. And the score 3-1 does not dictate how that game went. Chicago outplayed them. They had tons more chances than New York did. They just couldn't get the ball in the net. And, sometimes in soccer, that's how it goes. Prior to that, New York was ousted from the U.S. Open Cup by a mediocre New England team, and they lost at Philly before the international break. So really, the signs are there that they're not playing well, even though they got that win last week. Like I said, there's a lot going on there where the numbers are showing they're not playing that well. And Houston, I think they needed a break. They got it. They got their guys coming back. When you see a team like that favored by a half a goal at home after losing 4 straight games, there's a reason. And I think the fact that New York's got to travel here in a short rest, and the fact that Houston's getting everybody back makes a lot of sense. So I like Houston here. I think they're going to expose New York for their sloppy play that they've had recently, and I think they're finally going to end that losing streak and get on the winning board here. So Houston at home in this one, Drew.
All right, one MLS game left, and then we're going to talk the PGA Tour and close it out on that, talking with Nick Borrman at Borman00 on Twitter. We got Columbus at Real Salt Lake. Real Salt Lake minus a full goal here, total at 2.75, Nick.
Yeah, I like this one. The line was similar to New York. The first game we talked about was minus 3/4 of a goal last night, and now has moved to -1, and for good reason. I like Salt Lake in this game. We talk about other sports when we go through this, but Salt Lake in any sport is a tough place to go. It's the altitude adjustment. Players that don't play there aren't used to it, and how much more winded players can get, and that's certainly a factor. And they're a good team at home. They have 5 wins on the year and just 2 losses, and they've won their last 3 straight MLS matches over KC, Atlanta, and Toronto. So they are a very, very good home team. And really, Columbus is just in a bad state right now. They're playing terrible. They can't score. They still have 3 really important players for them, all on Team USA, that are going to be out for this match. Their keeper, Zach Steffen, who's actually going to Manchester City. I don't think he's actually going to. I think he transfers this week as soon as the Gold Cup's over. So I think he's played his last game for Columbus already. Their midfielder Trapp and their forward Zardes are both out as well. And without those guys up front, I mean, Zardes has been their leading goal scorer and a big reason why they're struggling. And they've lost 3 straight games now, all at home. And they failed to score in either of their last 2 against Kansas City and Orlando, who are 2 teams outside of the playoff picture. So I think this is the game that Salt Lake can certainly win and possibly win pretty big here. Everything's trending away from Columbus right now. And the fact that they got to travel to Salt Lake on short rest just makes a lot of sense. Another situation here where if you want to make your own 3/4 goal line, you can take that -1 line and take the 3-way line. But I think Salt Lake's going to win this one rather easily. 3-1, 3-0 possibly. I think we're going to see Salt Lake take this one, Drew.
All right, Nick, good stuff. As always, in the MLS, we're going to talk PGA up next. We got the Women's World Cup from Nick, hitting over 70%, 22-9 so far this tournament, 18-12 plus 9 units, 60% in Copa America and Gold Cup combined. And last 9 weeks in the PGA tournament picks, he's hitting 61%, 23-15. So make sure to check out sportsmemo.com for all of Nick's plays. He does have his best bet PGA Tour 3M Open 4-pack, a 4-pack available at sportsmemo.com. He's got it discounted to only $19. So for less than $20, you can have a 4-pack of plays in the PGA Tour event this weekend, heavily discounted there. He went 4-0 last week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So check it out at sportsmemo.com. Highly recommended. Obviously knows his stuff, and for only $19, you can be involved and pad your bankroll going into football season on the golf course here. Nick, what do we got going this weekend in golf that you think the listeners need to know about?
Well, they're going to they're playing, of course, TPC Twin Cities, so obviously up in Minnesota. This course that they're playing is new to the PGA Tour, but the Champions Tour, the seniors, they've been playing there since 2001. And if you know anything about the senior events, they only play 54-hole events as opposed to 72-hole events. And their winning scores at this course over the last several years, a lot of them have been 20 or more. So in 3 rounds, for the guys finishing 20 under par or more is pretty telling, and you're talking about the senior guys. So I think you're going to see some low scoring this week, possible, pushing 30 under par when it comes to the end of this week, but definitely like last week where you're seeing mid-20s is going to be the winning score. So guys are going to have to go low this week if they're going to want any chance to win. As far as the betting markets go, you have Koepka. He's playing this week. Him, Jason Day, and Hideki Matsuyama are the 3 tournament favorites. But like we mentioned before, it's tough to pick outright winners and when you're getting to 150-player fields. So a couple of guys I like this week for high finishes. You have Rory Sabatini to finish top 20 is at plus 175 right now. He's as hot as anyone on the tour. He finished tied for 3rd last week at the Rocket Mortgage, and he's now finished in the top 20 in 6 of his last 8 starts. So plus 175, I think, is a great price to get him. Matsuyama is also playing lights out. He's got 5 straight top 25 finishes, and he hasn't missed a cut this entire season. He finished tied for 51st at the Sony Open in January, which was his worst. His worst finish since then was a tied for 33 in 13 starts. So that's incredible how well he's been, basically top 30 or better in 13 straight starts. He's got 4 top 10s, 8 top 20s during that run. He's priced a little higher than I would like at a top 20. He's at minus 175, but he's plus 110 to finish top 10. So maybe kind of taking a wager and putting a little bit on both sides of that is the way to play Matsuyama. But those are 2 guys I think that are going to do well this week. And a fun one I'm looking at this week is Mickelson. He's really been struggling. He's missed 5 cuts in his last 8 starts, and you can get him at plus 160 right now to miss the cut this week. So they have all golfers usually have prop bets out on making or missing the cut, and he's plus 160 right now to miss the cut. He again, I think because of the scores you're going to see this week, I think you're going to have 5. Last week it was 5 under par was the cut line. You're going to be at least at that number again this week. And Mickelson has not been able to put back-to-back rounds together, so I think he's got a good chance to miss the cut this week. So those are 3 selections I'm looking at for the listeners out there this week. So we'll see how it goes. We're 2 weeks away from the last major of the year, the British Open, so we'll be talking about that coming up soon. And there's only 7 weeks left in the entire PGA Tour season as they finish up right before football begins. So we're getting down to the end of the season here, Drew. But hopefully we can keep going and finish strong.
Yeah, and hopefully the listeners can finish strong as well. Hopefully we put them on. You put them on the right side of a lot of these games. And guys, make sure to check out Sportsmemo.com for all of Nick's picks, both golf and soccer. He's been great in both. Gone over the records there, very impressive. And follow him on Twitter at Borman00. If this is the last podcast you're listening to, have a happy, fun, safe 4th of July weekend here. We will have Robbie Vino on breaking down the MLB games for the 4th of July slate, and also be breaking down a little Big 12 college football on Friday. So the podcast goes on even though the holiday is here. Nick, have a fun, safe weekend. Thanks for the time, man, and best of luck with your bets out there.